I hear myself with the echo.
You've already like mute the other account, so I think we're fine. I think we're fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear me on the other account?
Yeah, that
Okay.
one works too, right?
Yeah, now I
Wonder what it feels like to be more than I am. I am. I might lose my mind, waking when the sun's down, riding all these highs, waiting for the calm down. Walk these streets with me, I'm doing decently, just glad that I can breathe, yeah. I'm trying to realize it's alright to not be fine on your own. Now I'm shaking, drinking all this coffee. These last few weeks have been exhausting. I'm lost in my imagination, and there's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through? There's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through? Ain't got much to do. Too old for my hometown. Went to bed at noon. Couldn't put my phone down. Scrolling patiently. It's all the same to me. Just faces on a screen. Yeah. I'm trying to realize it's alright to not be fine on your own. Now I'm shaking, drinking all this coffee. These last few weeks have been exhausting. I'm lost in my imagination, and there's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through? Yeah. And there's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through? And there's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through?
Yes, baby. How's doing, baby? Where you going, dude?
Ooh, I'd be nothing without you. Ooh, there'd be no song without you, without you. When I'm down and out and feel like there is nothing left for me, you save me. Ooh, I'd feel nothing without you. Ooh, there'd be no song without you, without you. When I got into save me, you save me.
Okay, it's now time to start everything. So, wait, let me just prepare everything. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's sharing session. We'll be discussing disaster preparedness brought to you by Indonesian Youthquake 2020 and our main sponsor, Hospitrainer. My name is Ikra Wirata Mahendra, and I will be the moderator for today's event. I am a student at biology. I'm a student at Radboud University Nijmegen, taking biology as my major. So, on behalf of the Indonesian Youthquake Committee, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today here. We hope that through this event, you will gain new insights about disaster preparedness and many things that Mr. Roloff would share with us today. We hope, also, I would like to thank Mr. Roloff Mulder, the CEO of Hospitainer, for being here with us today, who will act as a speaker for today's event. So to start today's event, we will see an exclusive video from our project leader for Indonesian Youthquake and the Secretary General of PPI Belanda, Indonesian Student Association in the Netherlands. Perhaps the logistic team can help me and share the video right now.
Halo semua, berbicara soal pemuda, juga berbicara soal inspirasi. Pemuda identik dengan keingintahuan tinggi dan pencarian jati diri. Pertanyaannya sekarang adalah, apakah gelombang pemuda ini mau kita arahkan ke arah yang baik atau buruk bagi bangsa Indonesia? Mereka butuh sosok yang inspiratif. Mereka butuh orang yang mampu mengarahkan dan strategis. Sehingga kelak, pemuda juga mampu menginspirasi generasi selanjutnya. Pemuda juga soal sinergitas. Kini, pemuda Indonesia tidak hanya tersebar di 17.000 pulau yang ada di bumi Khatulistiwa, tapi juga tersebar di seluruh dunia. Mereka belajar dan bekerja untuk menjadi harapan bangsa Indonesia di masa depan. Melihat potensi-potensi ini, alangkah lebih baiknya kita bisa mewadahi mereka dan memfasilitasi mereka dengan suatu hal sesuai dengan minat bakat mereka. Apalagi di era kenormalan baru seperti sekarang, ini bukan sebuah halangan. Ini adalah tantangan dan peluang bagi pemuda Indonesia untuk maju dan beradaptasi di dalamnya. Kami yakin adanya inspirasi, adanya sinergisitas, pemuda Indonesia akan mampu menciptakan energi yang besar. Bukan energi biasa, tapi energi yang dapat membawa perubahan bagi Indonesia yang lebih baik dan bermartabat di masa depan. Oleh karena itu, kami dari PPI Belanda mengadakan sebuah acara yaitu Indonesian Youthquake 2020 dengan tema Breaking Through the Next Formal, The Role of Youth as Game Changers sebagai sebuah wadah bagi pemuda Indonesia di seluruh dunia untuk tetap kontributif, produktif, dan solutif bagi Indonesia di era kenormalan baru seperti sekarang. Kami menghadirkan rangkaian acara seperti webinar, workshop atau pelatihan, dan lomba supaya para pemuda Indonesia yang ada di seluruh dunia tidak hanya bisa berdiskusi, tapi juga mengaktualisasi diri mereka sesuai dengan minat dan bakat mereka. Indonesia Youthquake 2020, we are the game changers.
Halo semua, aku Aga, Sekretaris Jenderal PPI Belanda. Saat ini, seperempat dari bangsa kita dipenuhi oleh pemuda. Pemuda selalu memiliki peran yang penting dalam sejarah bangsa kita. Dari perjuangan pemuda daerah yang melawan penjajahan tanah air, sampai perhimpunan Indonesia yang membawa melawan bangsa Indonesia ke tingkat dunia. Karena itu, kita harus terus membangun diri bersama pemuda untuk menciptakan generasi penerus masa depan bangsa yang tangguh, mandiri, dan berdaya saing tinggi, terlebih lagi untuk memasuki era revolusi 4.0 dan peluang bonus demografi. Menyadari pentingnya peran pemuda menuju masa depan bangsa, Yuk kita bersama-sama mengembangkan potensi kita, meningkatkan sinergi dan energi pemuda, serta menjadi inspirasi untuk bangsa.
All right, there you go. A video from our team. So before everything, I would like to thank our sponsors and media partners for sponsoring and supporting our event, which has helped us run the event successfully up until today. Our partners are Hospitainer, obviously, Hydrodiesel, Nuvik Nesto, Ovetco, Oi Indonesia, the Embassy of Indonesia in the Netherlands, and the Ministry of Education and Culture. And our media partners are Kompas TV, Caldera News, Belindo Magazine, Brilio, Business Indonesia, and Binus TV. Right. Before we start today's session, I will read some ground rules that participant must obey during the session for the smooth conduct of the event. The ground rules are applied during the sessions are: first, participant who can join the meeting are the first 100 participant, and if the Zoom quota is full, the other participant can watch the session through YouTube and live streaming. Second, meeting ID and password to join the meeting will be notified by email. Please do not disseminate the information provided. Participants are kindly requested to log in and join the session 30 minutes before the session begins. 4, the committee will record the entire session. 5th, microphone participant must be muted unless it is allowed by me or the speaker, or you can use the raise hand system in the chat room and the logistic team will help us to unmute. 6th, participant can ask questions directly that will be guided by the moderator. 7, as the name suggests, the sharing session is expected to run interactively, but remains conducive. 8, participants who are eligible to get certificate are the participant who join the whole session for 2 hours and fill the feedback form at the end of the session. As additional information, before we go to our main session today, Indonesia Youthquake provides a giveaway that participant can join today. How do you participate? You have to answer the question, why is disaster preparedness important for us? And repost the poster in your Instagram account. And please do not forget to tag us at Indonesian Youthquake. We will choose the most exciting answer to get a prize of 150,000 for 2 winners. Our partner, Oi Indonesia, will present this giveaway. The transaction is this transaction is secure because of Oi Indonesia. It is simple, swift, and secure. So before we jump to the main session today, please let me briefly summarize our speaker's background so that all the participants might know a little more about our excellent speaker today, Mr. Rolf Mulder, the CEO and starter of Hospitainer. So the core of his company is to produce mobile and modular medical infrastructure based on shipping containers. A hospital can be built very quickly from stock in any combination of OT, X-ray, maternity, dental, ophthalmic, and so on. So to get to know him a little more, let's do a little chat with him. So Mr. Rolf Mulder, can you please introduce yourself a little? All right.
Yeah, hello. Thank you. It's a real privilege to be with you all, to be invited to do this session. I've been traveling to Indonesia, and especially the youth is really full of energy and power, and the future, as you said in the movies already. So yeah, we are at Hospitainer very happy that we can contribute because we believe in the future of the youth and for Indonesia, because there are many challenges in Indonesia as we have seen, and yeah, I hope that together in the future we can hopefully work together, or we just inspire you and you do it yourself and with other partners. I have a presentation where I will share more about my background with some pictures. I like pictures. But also Mr. Ebert Lita is here, and maybe he can also introduce himself because he's Indonesian. I'm not, so sorry for that.
Right.
He's we call each other brothers, and we travel a lot. And I will just, if it's okay with you, I will let him introduce himself and what we are doing. Okay?
Yeah, it is perfectly fine.
You can do it in Indonesian because I know
sure.
the story.
Sure, that'll be better. Right.
Okay.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. So I will introduce myself di dalam bahasa Indonesia aja kalau begitu. Saya Ebert Litai. Saya sekarang kerjasama dengan Roloff, dan seperti Roloff menyatakan saya adik berkakak sama Roloff, walaupun beda kulit tapi adik berkakak. Aku mungkin sedikit hangus, tapi Roloff dan aku itu kerjasama di Indonesia. Tapi nanti cerita dulu mengenai aku sendiri. Aku latar belakang hukum dari Leiden, Universitas Leiden. Dulu staf politik dan penasehat di KBRI Den Haag. Dan selain itu juga presiden diaspora sedunia, dan sekarang juga aktif di Rotary International. Dan karena itu sangat connect sama Roloff, karena Roloff ingin, seperti kami selalu bilang, bangun nusa dan bangsa. Dan karena itu kami sangat perhatikan dengan Indonesia. Tapi nanti Roloff menceritakan, kami sudah pernah kerja sama dengan BNPB, kerjasama dengan stakeholders lain di Indonesia. Dan aku sebenarnya seperti tangan kanannya, biasanya Asprof, tapi mungkin sekarang Asrot, asisten sorotan dari Roloff. Dan aku tidak mau bicara terlalu lama, tapi pikir supaya teman-teman dari PPI dan lain-lain tahu aku siapa, dan jangan pikir kok ini siapa lagi dengan Roloff. Tapi kami berdua selalu kalau dengan Indonesia kerja sama. Jadi demikian, terima kasih. Mas.
Tidak apa-apa Pak, kita di sini dulu Mas. Okay, without having to linger again, we immediately start today's sharing session. So for those participants who want to ask a question to the speaker, please write your question in the chat room. If you're going to ask directly, please use the raise hand feature, as I've said. And later, I will choose several people to be able to ask questions directly to Mr. Roloff Mulder. So, Mr. Roloff Mulder, you can start your presentation right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like to share with a personal story first. This is my daughter. This was in 2008. Just checking if the sound is okay. Can you follow everything?
Yeah, I think your sound is fine by me.
Okay, good. In 2008, my daughter, she's now already grown up. She was in Sierra Leone with an organization called Youth with a Mission, working in an orphanage. And at that time, I was still working with computers. I had my own computer company, but I was trained as a nurse in the past with the idea to use my medical background to do something for people that are less fortunate than we are in the West. But I was kind of drifted off into computers, and she worked there, and she worked in an orphanage, but also in a hospital. And when she came back with the stories, I thought I have to go back to the medical field and go for my dream, my calling, whatever you call it. I call it a calling because I believe in God, and I believe everybody has a calling on his life to be a blessing to people, to nations, etc. So at the same time, I was while she was doing that, I was in Ghana, and in the back, at the right back, you see a building. In the front, you see me taking a shower in the clay hut. But in the back was a hospital, and I was bringing there a container with satellite and communication systems for the hospital. But the hospital was $15 million. It was a Dutch and Ghanaian combined project, but it was like a white elephant. It was in the middle of nowhere. There was no plan. There was no staff. And after 2 months later, we heard it closed because there was no plan behind it. But already then we found it a little bit strange that there was this hospital and we had to bring our supplies, etc. So I had to wait there for 6 days because they said your container will come tomorrow, and they said that for 6 days, which is quite normal in Africa. So you have time to think. So I thought, well, why not design, build a hospital that is much cheaper and also much more robust and easy to install, etc., and go for my dream. So I came back to Holland and discussed it with my wife. We prayed about it and said, okay, let's start building a hospital. We take our money that we have earned with the IT company and put it all in a prototype for a hospital, a container hospital. And we said, okay, let's ask a blessing and do it. And so I started to build. This is the only picture I have from that period with a pensioned carpenter in his grocery garden. I started to build the first operation theater in containers. These are 2 containers, and his garden was filled, so there was no room for more. So after a while, we moved to another place and extended the hospital. And after a year, the hospital was finished, but also the money was finished. So we said, okay, what do we do now? And yeah, we said, okay, we prayed what to do, and waited, and I started to look for other jobs, etc. But at a certain moment, the earthquake in Haiti struck in 2010. We got a visit from Doctors Without Borders, MSF, and they asked us, is your hospital still available? I said yes, and they said, okay, we need it because our hospital collapsed in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. So we packed it, and in 2 days, and we sent it, and we flew there and built it up in 3 days. And that's actually, in short, how it started, how the story started, and also why we do it, because we want to be a blessing for people, for nations that are underprivileged. We have so many healthcare. So let me go more into the presentation of what we do right now. So already since 2009, we started, as I mentioned, but now we work with governments, with the UN, universities, etc. As you can see here, we are supported by the European Union in the starting years. And also I'm trained by the UN as a civil military coordinator, because during disasters you have NGOs coming in, you have the military coming in, and they have to work together. That's not always going perfect because they use different language, they use different methods. And so we were trained as a team by the UN to be a mediator between the military and NGOs. So we also started consortia with the UN for Syria. We did a lot of projects in Syria during the war that's still going on, almost, yeah. And so we started strategic partnerships with the UN, especially for refugees, refugee camps. And since 2017, these are some highlights. We started projects we call Healthy Village for Colombia and Indonesia. That's what we're working on right now. I'll tell a little bit more about that later, what it means. So this is a bit of overview. When I go, our contacts with Indonesia, as you can see here, is with different organizations. We were also visited by Padoni from BNPB. Thanks to Abed, he brought him here, and also by Aris from Desemas. It's an organization that works with villages, for villages in Indonesia. So we have some contacts there, and have been traveling regularly to Indonesia. Why do we use shipping containers? Because they're very easy to transport. They're strong. You can transport them by air, as you can see, by road, by sea. And there are actually 4 different types: on the ground, on wheels, on water, and by air. So it's like a modular system. So it doesn't really matter what kind of system you use, like Lego. You know, you have the wheels set, you have the boat, you just plug on your block and you start to build. And you can combine different, blocks. And the modules could be, for instance, like dental. This is also in a container. And it's a complete unit with everything inside. It can also be X-ray. This is a digital one it's wireless. So you don't need chemicals or something. It's very robust, lightweight. Another one is ophthalmic or dialysis. We're just sending a dialysis container to Syria, to refugees that don't have access anymore to dialysis. You see some other examples like primary healthcare consultation. A laboratory. This is a general laboratory with urine testing, blood testing, blood bank, refrigerator. So a general testing lab for general purposes, but also specialist labs like Ebola or COVID. We've done 3 Ebola labs during the Ebola crisis, and also 3 labs recently for COVID. And the Ebola labs, or the labs, just takes us a few weeks to assemble, because we have stock. So we have a module container that is already fitted with electricity and water, and we quickly can place some items in there, like the glove box that you see here. And this was done in 1.5 weeks. We produced 3 labs and also an isolation center for the patients, suspected Ebola patients. And now for Corona, we did 15 clinics for isolation of patients, and 3 labs also in a few months. So we take from our stock, and we quickly can supply these units, what is needed, and if needed, we can adapt it very quickly as well. So another module would be emergency care. And this is from a ship used by Doctors Without Borders in the Mediterranean, also for refugees. It can be a morgue. Unfortunately, during the, Abed has to move because we have a sensor here, a movement sensor. We are not active enough. So the lights are going on again.
It's fine.
Refugees were drowning during their trip from Libya to Europe, and they had to, of course, the corpses had to be cooled. So some examples of projects we did. The first hospital I just mentioned, I built in the garden of my neighbor. We sent it to Haiti, set it up in 3 days, and about 2,000 surgeries were done in about 10 months. And then we got it back and refurbished it, and we still have it for them, and we can send it anytime if they call us. Another one is Somalia, surgical units in Mogadishu, and after 5 days of the contract, we send it and build it up in 5 days. Another example, it's not chronological, but some examples. UNFPA, after the typhoon, we sent 6 containers in an aircraft, and Typhoon Yolanda, and we set it up in 4 days, and also includes solar, everything for 2,000 surgeries, like consumables, instruments, equipment, a generator, water system. So it's self-supporting. It's an autonomous system. We even can drill well if needed to get water from if there's water in the ground, of course. So we try to be as much independent as possible, because after disasters, everything can be gone. All the infrastructure can be gone. So if you look at it from the top, you see the operation theater, 2 containers combined. You see a middle section, which is made of panels that are transported inside the containers, the floor also. You have a pre and post OT room. So preparation for the surgery and when the patient is back from surgery. Sterilization room for the instruments and cleaning up everything. Staff room with shower, toilet, and then the entrance where the admission is done, etc. And 1 container for storage of goods, a technical room as well. And so this is sent in 6 standard shipping containers. When we send it, everything is packed, including the solar panels, the generator, etc. But this is just an example. It can also be 8 or 10 or 20 containers or 4. It's modular. It's a modular system. So they were doing a lot of C-sections, because this was especially for a maternity hospital that had collapsed. And what we also send to disaster areas is we call it a hospital starter kit. Like IKEA, you can buy a kit and then make your own cupboard or whatever, or couch, or you have tools, and this is the same. So everything to build your hospital is inside this trailer. You can see on the image, you can see the generator, you can see the water tanks. And inside, there's everything for 2,000 surgeries. There's for 5,000 people living in the area for 1 year, consumables, bandages, everything that can be needed. X-ray laboratory, sterilizing, beds. You have to connect it to an existing building. On this image, you can see a damaged building here in Syria that was damaged because of the war. And you convert it into a hospital. And we've done that in several places, as you can see here. At the moment, we have 13 projects all over the country. And what also is an interesting aspect, that bringing healthcare supports peace. Because this building that you see here, if you with the broken windows, I'm not sure if it's visible here, was at the front line where it was in Homs, two factions were fighting toward each other. So you could see the other village, and they were shooting at each other. And then there was a reconciliation committee consisting of Christians, a monastery, Muslims from different sides, that negotiated to allow families from both sides to go to the hospital, because there was no hospital. The hospitals were damaged, and they stopped their fighting. They stopped shooting, and this became. So you can also see that bringing healthcare and maybe also other services like water or food or in general during a disaster is also stabilizing and bring peace, can bring people together. So when you unpack the trailer, you have the operation theater, you have the technical room with sterilization, you have a pre and post OT, and there's a lift in the back, you have a generator in the front. So you just connect it, well, to the building, and in the building you make your rooms and you have a hospital. It sounds simple, but it is quite simple actually. When they started, there was 12 staff in Homs, and in a few days it was operational. And after a few years, it was already 120 staff, so it grew. We also work with UNFPA, that's the UN well, the FPA standard for family planning activities or something like that, but it's mostly focused on women. And as you can see, women suffer a lot during disasters. And there's a lot of maternal death, there's a lot of baby death, sexual violence. So I think 50% of what we do is especially for this target group. And we designed some solutions, especially for this. This is already some old data, we have supplied more, but we call it a maternity container that has everything inside for deliveries of babies, gynecological treatment, but also sexual violence, which unfortunately happens a lot. And from the outside, you cannot see, it looks like a clinic, so it's not stigmatizing. You don't mention that it's for victims of rape, because it's very sensitive, of course, in the family, in the society. And when you look, and I have a video of that from, this is from the north of Syria, a camp. And I think it speaks for itself. I will just start the video and just give me a call if the sound is not perfect. The sound is not perfect I hear right now because I have to put on the microphone. Just a minute. Zoom. Oh, here I see. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just mute my mic, sorry. Just a minute, please. This should do it. You don't hear it?
Unfortunately, we don't hear anything.
Okay. Let's stop it. We have been testing, so I'm wondering why it's not working. Yeah, but then I put on my. I'll unmute. Let's try again.
Is there nothing?
Uitvoer. Geluid uit. Got it.
Nou is er in dit kamp ook een kleine kliniek.
Now it's fine.
Nou is er in dit kamp ook een kleine kliniek. Daar mag je niet binnen filmen. Maar we mogen wel even binnenkijken in een soort mobiele operatiekamer die in Nederland is gemaakt.
This is a unit surgery.
And you got it?
From Holland.
Right. From the government of Holland or organization?
No, this is from the government of Germany, but the company is in Holland. And we can move it anytime. When I came, we ran away.
Dr. Valentina is nog de enige gynaecoloog in de provincie Aleppo. Ze heeft het ontzettend druk. In het kleine ziekenhuisje kan het werk amper aan. Ook worden hier voor de deur regelmatig aanslagen gepleegd.
It's dangerous from the car bombing.
There was car bombing here near the camp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nearly 3 times this last month.
Okay. Mute my sound. Stop share. Okay. I will just mute myself because I hear myself double.
Yes, it is audible. So is that's all of your presentation?
No.
I thought
I have more.
Okay.
I have more.
All right.
Yeah,
You
I will
may
continue.
start sharing your screen again.
Yeah.
Right, there you go.
Yeah. So when you look inside of the, you hear me? It sounds okay?
Yeah, sounds fine.
Okay. If you look inside the container for the women, it looks like this. It's a gynecological place in 2 parts with ultrasound, and women were lined up here in the north of at the front line for treatment help. And we also placed one in a building. There was a damaged building, and they are using it now for deliveries. So you see 40 deliveries per month, the names of the doctors and the midwives. What we also do during disasters is a 50-bed mobile hospital, and this is really mobile. It's only packed in 3 trucks, and one truck is the truck that you saw before for the OT, and the other ones is for the delivery of all the goods. It's inflatable tents, and these tents can be inflated in 15 minutes. So you have like a complete hospital, including water, kitchen, everything needed for surgery. The setup time is about 12 hours, and we have delivered several of these. And you see that all the things that you need is included, again, for 2,000 surgeries. The oxygen is included, etc. 4 of these hospitals are used during the Hajj. And I have a video of the Hajj I will show you. But then I will put on my sound again. Okay. Microphone. Sorry.
Yes. No problem. No problem at all.
The microphone is off.
Uh,
Just
Still hear
loud.
feedbacks.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start again.
Perhaps you can turn off the other one, like what from one of your computer. Right.
That's a good one.
Right.
Mute.
Right. There you go. Now we can't hear the audio, I think. There you go.
Okay, that's it. Go back to the other one. Mute.
We can't really hear you.
Okay, I think
Oh,
it's okay.
there you go. All right.
Yeah, so you've seen the hospital. Everything is included for the services. The tents that can be inflated in 15 minutes. Toilets that are like boxes that you unpack and connect it just with clicks. Zeg je? Oh, share screen. Ah, okay, sorry. I have to start sharing the screen again. Sorry for that.
Right. Sorry. There you go.
Yeah, I was mentioning the tents, all the equipment that's inside, inflatable tents that you can set up very quickly. The toilets are like boxes that you unpack and click together. What the sinks, ACs, etc., everything that is needed. Laboratory that can be carried. Everything can actually be carried by 2 persons, except the tents. You need 6 persons, but with handles, etc. So it's manual. You don't need forklifts, etc. The water system, everything is double for the whole hospital to filter the water, to pump the water. What you also see during disaster is that the first hours they call the golden hours. People are wounded. They have fractures. If depending on the kind of disaster, if you have an earthquake, you probably have more fractures. If you have a flood, you have flesh wounds and also cholera and infectious diseases. So we made a kind of contingency plan. What do you need when you have when a certain kind of disaster strikes? For earthquake in Haiti, we saw there were 250,000 wounded people and a lot of fractures. I think it's the same in Indonesia and many other countries. So you need to do surgery very quickly, and the 2 first hours are called the golden hours because you can stabilize the patients and then send them to hospitals further away, either by helicopter, by truck, or by boat, whatever. And this unit that you see here, we call rapid mobile surgical unit, is more compact, and it's meant for stabilizing the patients. So you have a tent and with an X-ray, with some beds to prepare the patients for the surgical room. So they go inside the surgical room, you stop the bleeding, do the first needed care, and then you bring them back to the tent for transport to another hospital. And then you have hopefully probably saved their lives so they can be treated further on. Same with an aircraft. You can put the patients in a container. The container can go into an aircraft or under a helicopter and be transported to hospitals further away in cities or wherever. We also do the same with ships, and I have a video of this ship. Actually, I think we have quite some time, so forgive me for the sound issue. I will show the video of the ship, and let me go again to, I will unmute this.
Yeah, we can't really hear anything.
Okay, so here you see the views of the ships, and let me go back to the. Here's another ship, also another video, but I will save that. Otherwise, there's maybe too much. We can also view it later. Another ship for more than 1,000 refugees, and we have also been working with MSF, as you can see here, and about 10,000 people were rescued in the Mediterranean, and you see some other data. And this is the ship for more than 1,000 refugees, also of MSF. Then there's the Navy. This is a ship that's built in by PT Paul in Surabaya, and we visit also the yard there and talk with them about how to fit a hospital inside a Navy vessel. And you see here an example of how to build a hospital inside the vessel, and this one is mostly focused on surgery when you have the an earthquake, for instance, an earthquake. And you can either build the hospital inside the ship, or you can take the containers with landing vessels to the shore and build the hospital on the shore, since it's a modular system. And another example here is more with more beds, because for cholera, for instance, you need more beds to treat the patients. So it's flexible also. And yeah, we have stock, so we can quickly deliver from stock. And when we were in Indonesia talking to BNPB, Padoni and his staff, they said, well, we need more of this in Indonesia because we have a lot of disasters, and we need maybe 3 places where we have stock that we can quickly ship, either by aircraft, by vessel, or by truck, depending on the needs, depending on the contingency plan, and what can Hospitainer do. So as you know better than me, there are so many disasters, and we discussed this together, and we said, what can we do for Indonesia? And the first option that we discussed with BNPB was strengthening the existing, because there are tents already in use, but how can we improve those tents? How can we improve the energy? And you see here an example of solar panels on top of the tents. How can we also improve sanitation? And you see some units, some sanitation units that can be flown in. So it's the first step is strengthening what is already there. Also, how can we strengthen the availability of water, drinking water, also making it from seawater. How can we treat the waste? And Padoni especially his focus is on how do you call this, EBET, natural. Yeah, but I mean the biological way of keeping the environment safe, etc.
Yeah, he used to have a program there, Amas Hijau. So, and he also worked before the BNPB. He also worked at the Citarum River. So he in Indonesia is really focused on the environment also.
Yeah. So environment is really a important factor for us also, but also for BNPB. What to do during disasters. And also what is very important, during disaster, you need to coordinate. So we designed a coordination center that fits in 3 boxes that can be transported by truck, 4x4, Toyota or whatever, or a helicopter, small plane, etc. And you can start communication, you can start the meeting, coordination. When we were in Indonesia last time, that was one of the things we heard, that during the disaster, it's really hard to coordinate. Maybe you can tell a little bit about the meeting that we had.
We went several times to Indonesia. So one of the times we went to Lombok to visit Lombok after the earthquake. So we were guided
Indonesisch.
Oh, kita dikawal sama orang BNPB untuk ke Lombok, dan waktu itu aku sama Rolof ke Lombok dan Lombok Utara untuk melihat puskesmas kecil, puskesmas besar, dan juga lihat rumah sakit. Dan pada saat itu juga seringkali disebut sebagai staff bahwa pas ada bencana selalu masalahnya koordinasi. Dan itu salah satu terutama yang membuat bantuan lelet atau dapat halangan.
Yeah, thanks. So the coordination center also has solar, has a communication system. And like I told you, it fits in, it's very compact, so you can transport it quickly to the area. Then there's another thing is the modules that are ready, as you can see here on this picture, for a disaster. Once you have a disaster, you can pick whatever you need and bring it to the disaster area. And oh, excuse me. Let me go back. This is a movie that shows the modules again. You have already seen those modules. So you take, if a certain disaster happens, you take your contingency plan and just look, what do we need? Do we need surgery? Do we need a laboratory? Is it infectious diseases? Is it a lot of flesh wounds? Can we travel by air? And what modules do we take from our stock and bring to the area? And as you can see here, the modules can be combined, so you have bigger spaces. They also can be transported by river, by pontoons that are also fitting inside the container, these black boxes that you see here. When you click them together, you have a boat. Those boats now sail, for instance, in Colombia. And here you can see an animation how you can combine the different modules. So if you want to expand later, you can also expand it and send more modules. Or if you want to change something, you just change one module for another. And what you see right here is that you can also make it very compact, very small primary healthcare clinics, including the solar system, water treatments, generators, water towers, and also you can expand the hospital. So these modules can be, for instance, also very compact, an OT tent with equipment and consumables that you can set up in 1 hour to save lives. It's again in the first hours, the golden hours. You can have a container surgery. You can have modules for infectious diseases, intensive care unit. Like we see now with COVID, we made a lot of intensive care units with negative pressure to keep the virus in, that, well, not really in, but filter it and not exposing it to the other patients or to the staff. A laboratory unit, but also tent systems, and that have a good temperature, because temperature was really a problem with the existing tents that became very, very hot. Sanitation and beds, X-ray, dialysis, all these modules you can have ready. Maternity, treatment of sexual violence, air ambulances, and also transport availability by the big Navy ships, but also other, and also the president, we learned, said he wants to use these vessels from the Navy for healthcare during disasters. I've already shown this before. And you can combine these also with landing crafts and bring these to the shore and build a clinic at the shore. You can take your helicopters, bring them to areas where there's no transport available by vessel or by truck, or you can use the pontoons to go to on the rivers, etc. Well, the option 3 is now I have to introduce what we call healthy village. As you can see here in the middle, maybe it's a bit small, but this is a clinic, and we always start with a clinic to bring healthcare to a vessel that doesn't, sorry, to a village that does not have healthcare, and then you can extend it by adding more modules, more rooms, but also extend it by bringing agriculture, because if you feed patients healthy food with vitamins, they heal quicker. You have sanitations, you have a mosque, a church, you have small shops. This is, of course, you will not do it like this, but it's just an example. A school. So we can work together with NGOs, and I think that's great that a lot of students that are now watching, not only medical students, but also have other background, technical skills, education, water, energy, for instance. But when you start with a clinic, you have already a basic energy. You have solar, you have water treatment, you have management. So you have a starting point from where you can expand all the other services, and then the whole village will raise in prosperity and health. So health is not only physical health, but a holistic view on health, well-being, etc. So we also discussed this with BNPB and also other organizations within Indonesia. We're doing it right now very actively. We want to plan some pilots to do this in 3 places in Indonesia. start with these clinics and then also combine it with other services, the other services. So this is actually not disaster, but it's like development of the areas where there's no healthcare or these are very remote. But we believe we can combine both. We can combine disaster preparedness, disaster response, and development. And I would like to show how. This is a very small clinic, a solar clinic that is put in the village. It has all the functions that you need for primary healthcare. It's like a small puskesmas. Here you see an example on poles because of the flooding in Colombia. This is Colombia. And also we can put it on the pontoons. They sail the rivers, they visit the villages. And when you look at the top, you see the different modules. You see consultation, you see treatment. This is for dental, for delivery, battery pack, etc. So it's really compact. Also promotion, instruction to the people. And these modules, health modules, form a kind of star network. So in the villages, you will have the small clinics, the small puskesmas, that can also redirect patients to a bigger puskesmas that has, for instance, surgery and X-ray and a bigger laboratory. And if needed, patients can travel from this clinic to the big hospitals in the cities. And why do you want to do this? Because nowadays, many people travel from the rural areas directly to the city, and the hospitals are overcrowded, and it's very expensive. So if you treat people locally, you will prevent diseases from getting more worse. You will be there at the start, even with prevention. You will save people a lot of transport costs, and during transport, even people can die because of the length of the transport. And you will save many costs also in the total system. And that way, the money can be spent better. And another reason is that if you organize it well in the rural areas, let's say if a few of you are studying as a doctor or as a nurse or midwife or whatever, it's very hard to work in the remote area if you don't have good infrastructure, good equipment, good communication by satellite. We also provide satellite communication and software, for instance. So once you organize that well in the area, in the local area, it will also be easier for you people to go and live there, maybe live there for a while, I don't know, but to help the people that are really in need of healthcare. And this way you can contribute to the whole system of healthcare in Indonesia. So the modules are placed in the villages, and then if a disaster strikes, you can bring the coordination, for instance, the different modules by different transport that you see on the right. And whatever the kind of disaster, you send what is needed, and you can connect it to the already infrastructure that's already available. So you add a container like a surgery, or you add a water system. You connect it to the communication system that is already in the puskesmas satellite system. So by combining modules with existing infrastructure, you make it much stronger. So these are actually the three options that we discussed with BNPB. First, option one is strengthening the existing to be prepared. Also to have a contingency plan, how to react on which disasters. Option two is option one plus modules that are available, and that's more part of the contingency plan. And option three is to combine the first two options with a healthy village concept, where you have your basis already in the villages. And so we are looking at how can we also finance that with maybe funds from the Dutch government, from different investors, because financing is also a very important step of that. So I think I'm done with my presentation, which is very long. I apologize for that. But I can imagine there are some questions, and I have also some questions to ask you. So if you run out of questions, I still have more questions. And I would like to give it back to the moderator. Thank you for your time.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It's very brilliant. I've gained so many new insights from your presentation. Okay, guys, if you have any questions, you can do the raise your hand feature, as I've said, or just type it on the chat room. So there's already one question, Mr. Roloff, sorry.
Okay.
Fauzul Rizka, he would like to know that how does like the hospitaler treat its medical waste? Will the waste be treated by hospitaler or like other consortium efforts or outsourcing?
Yeah.
About the medical waste. How do you guys come about it?
Yeah, we have incinerator that is really basic. It burns on wood, and it will raise the temperature to 1200 degrees. It's designed by Doctors Without Borders. So this is a really basic version. You also have extended versions that run on electricity or on fuel. Yeah, and then you have also your water that you want to treat, the general water. There we have a biological system with the bacteria. It's aerobe, so active sludge system for the technical people and you. But it takes about 2 weeks to start up. So if you have a disaster, it's you cannot always do it the perfect way. So you have to balance saving lives and what is good for environment. But in the end, you want to do both, of course. Yeah, so I think that for the engineers, there's a challenge to to help doing that in the most balanced way.
Right. That is your answer, Mr. Fauzul. Do you have any more question? Anyone? Okay, no one is raising their hands.
There was one raising their
Right. He said great. Thank you. Any other? So I think you can ask your questions first, and then while we wait for more questions, right?
Okay. Good. Good.
You're so impressed.
Yeah. I would like to ask the participants because you, first of all, you have more knowledge about Indonesia. You are smart people because you study and you want to use your brains, and yeah, I also assume you want to contribute next to having maybe a business or an income, but also contribute to your country. What do you think, also for us as Hospitainer, it's really helpful to get this information to serve better, what is the quickest wins for disaster preparedness in Indonesia?
Sorry, can you repeat your question? Greatest what? Sorry.
What are the biggest quick wins for disaster preparedness in Indonesia?
Quick wins?
Yeah, with a quick win, I mean, I can post it.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. Chat.
The audio is not really good. Right. Okay. So okay. You can post it.
Okay, I'll put my sound louder. I've just posted.
Okay. Okay, this is perhaps even harder than the Dutch university exams, like the questions. I mean, I failed a lot of subjects, so like, don't expect so much. Do you guys have any answers? Anyone? You can just unmute yourself or perhaps type it on the chat. Maybe you can probably explain a little bit more about like, what do you mean by quick wins? Is it like the advantages that we have innately as Indonesian, or what do you mean by that? So
I mean, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. well, the not quick wins. Let me put it the other way.
All right.
Long-term solutions can be like, okay, we have to make big plans and we have to put stock everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But this might take a few years, to realize. I'm also interested to learn about that because we also want to focus on that as well. But quick wins are, what can you do right now, very quickly, to improve preparedness for disasters? So you know that maybe 1,000 disasters will strike every year in Indonesia. And what are the biggest challenges at the moment with these disasters, and what can be done quickly to improve?
Right. Okay, guys, you hear the question. If you guys want to answer in Indonesian, I can help to translate it for Mr. Rolo.
Or maybe you can also.
Or Mr. Ebed can actually translate it too for him. Maybe it doesn't matter.
Directly to Dutch.
Right, directly to Dutch. I don't speak Dutch, sorry. Like,
Je mag de vraag ook in Indonesisch stellen. Okay.
Right. I only know kasabonen in Dutch, which means receipt. So I can say no to the cashier. Right. Okay. I don't think anyone has an answer. Perhaps I can help start the conversation here. I think, Indonesia is a really, I forgot which survey, but we were ranked as the first in the kindness country. So we give a lot. We are the most philanthropic, one of the most philanthropic country in the world, in fact. And I think when disaster strikes, people really do move fast for aids and, financially, both financially and like giving them food and clothes and stuff. We are really tight on that. Perhaps it's a really good insight for the hospitality team because like, as just like a amateur observant of everything, I can see how people react faster than any other country, perhaps. I don't have the data to back it up, but as a matter of fact, I've seen this survey in one of the platform I've read. But like, yeah, I think we are one of the most philanthropic country in the world. So that is a really good thing. Any more answers perhaps? Nggak apa-apa kalau mau pakai bahasa Indonesia, saya bisa bantu ahli bahasa. Di sini kita untuk bisa berdiskusi jadi lebih gampang.
Ya, kalau bisa jangan malu-malu dong.
Iya, jangan malu-malu. Nanti saya doang yang pinter di sini.
Ya kan sekarang kan kesempatan bagus untuk bisa bertanya sama orang di Belanda kan, sama orang Belanda.
Betul.
Sayang sekali. Tapi jangan tanya minta uang ya.
Itu saya juga mau kalau itu. Untuk bayar tuition fee. Right. Okay, maybe I have a question here. Like, to what extent does like the modularity itself help during disaster relief? Because like we know that you've mentioned that we do have like problems that we are facing during disaster relief because of the access and everything. But like maybe in numbers, perhaps you can compare like two different disaster that has one that has your modular system and the other who doesn't, and how does it compare?
Good question. I don't think we have data on that because you have to do a comparison from the start. Hoe zeg je dat in een nulmeting?
The basic meeting, start meeting.
Yeah.
That is
Right.
point zero.
Yeah. So I think that's where students come in.
Right, that's true.
To do this comparison. And what I can say, for instance, is that I'll give you an example. We knew at a certain moment from the UN and that Mosul in Iraq would be liberated from the rebels that were from ISIS. Right. And that was already planned, the attack or liberation, whatever you call it. And they asked us, they approached us, can you send modules, maternity modules, because a lot of women, as you know, were raped, kept captive, sex slaves, and they need treatment and so on. So, and we had these on stock, so we could send them very quickly. But the problem was not so much availability, but planning. So the UN is not really quick, and it took 2 months for the paperwork, and then we could send them. I think we sent 14 trucks, but then actually you are 2 months too late. So my frustration is that that was my frustration. So we said, why don't we make a quick win ourselves as Hospitainer and take stock and take from our stock and send it ourselves free of charge to a disaster area together with other organizations. So we are now actually loading our foundation with equipment and working with other organizations, that volunteers that can help, medical staff, also technical staff, veterans from the army that also want to help. So we're working on this plan to be more quickly available, because many things that are you can imagine many solutions, but you have to get your permissions, you have to from the authorities, of course, and that can take, and also financing it can be a stumbling block. I'm happy you mentioned that Indonesia is one of the most philanthropic countries. So I think if we combine that with an organization, an Indonesian organization that can react quick, that could be, well, not, I don't think a quick win. It will be a more longer term because you need organization. But you can imagine that if you are there in time, if you have your stock in Indonesia in 3 different places, and you have your transport ready, you have your plans ready, then it's much more situation of pressing the button. Yeah, so we are struggling with the same question. How can we improve the response? We can either do it ourselves a little bit, but that's not a real solution, I think, although we want to do it, because the scale cannot be massive. It always has to be supported or done from the government. I think the government is the first who is responsible, and they want to do it, but that takes more time.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting answer. Mahar Sida here was trying to answer the question that you gave us. Perhaps it's a she. Sorry if I'm wrong. She said that upgrading the human resources in Indonesia is very important, and collaborating it with other sectors, perhaps the technology. So like maybe what she's trying to say is integration of the human resources and other resources, because we are, you know, in fact a really big country with a lot of volunteers, different people, different languages, and I think that is a very great answer for you, that the integration of the people itself and the people with other resources is very important. And there's another question here. So we've been only talking about the disaster preparedness in a macro scale. You know, we've been talking about how we interact with the government, how hospitalians interact with the government, and how the government can prepare for disaster better. But we are all here individuals that attend a meeting. Perhaps you can have one of our few words to answer. How do we actually, as a civil people, like the civil society, can actually prepare themselves for disasters, perhaps, as individual?
Yeah. Yeah, I really would like to have those ideas from you as well, because we have some ideas, but not the perfect solution. The idea that we bring to the table is that when we strengthen the puskesmas, so the local community, and also train them, and that's also what BNPB is doing. They're also training local people. That once that's stronger, if you go there as a volunteer, then they are prepared and you are prepared. I think that's also referring to the remark before. Then you can work together much more closely. So that our idea would be strengthening the local capacity,
Right.
training of volunteers. Maybe Abed, you want to add something to that?
Yes, once in a discussion of us also with BNPB, there's also the other concept where we can join together. Oh, yang kita bisa gabung. So I will go in Indonesian again. So it's about desa tangguh. So for example, contoh Roloff sama kliniknya di sana, tapi sambil juga itu tanaman-tanaman seperti di Healthy Village, bukan hanya di dalam kompleks dari Healthy Village saja, tapi juga contoh di gunung yang lahannya sedikit curang dengan kopi atau apa, dan sekaligus juga itu buat di skala mikro juga masyarakat prepare dari siap siaga, dan juga sambil Healthy Village konsep jalan, berarti puskesmas di setempat, manusia juga lebih well-beingnya lebih bagus, dan juga ada ekonomi juga berkembang sambil konsepnya bergabung di skala mikro. Karena kalau lahannya dipakai untuk kopi atau tanaman lain, nggak ada longsor lagi, nggak ada banjir lagi, sambil ekonomi juga tumbuh, sambil juga dari luar bisa masuk beli produk-produk. Berarti dampaknya ada banyak sekali selain dari konsep Healthy Village. So I should explain about Healthy Village concept and the economics.
And if you talk about the question, I also see it in front of me about how as individuals can we be prepared ourselves. There are many organizations, voluntary organizations in Indonesia that work with disaster preparedness and also disaster response. You could also, I think, join one of these organizations. There are many, many the ones we visited.
Right.
ACT Aksi Tanggung Tepat. Kami kerjasama dengan banyak organisasi setempat juga, karena percaya kalau membuat sesuatu harus dengan masyarakat. Tidak bisa, wah ini kami dari Belanda bawa konsep ini ambil aja, nggak bisa. Kami kerjanya seperti istilahnya dalam bahasa Inggris demand driven. Apa kebutuhan setempatnya, apa yang masyarakat mau, dan bagaimana bersama bisa bahu membahu dan gotong royong ke depan. Dan itu salah satu konsep dan filsafat kami juga sebagai Preparedness.
I think continuing our discussion in this particular subject, Indonesia in general are known for like, we do have a lot of programs, government programs with like great jargons, right? Great title, but and they do have the first initials. The first initials are always mostly are successful, but in the long term, those government programs ended very quickly. I don't have the data for this, but how do you actually manage to prevent the Desa Tangguh, perhaps for just being another government program that fails?
Right. Yeah. Still, we also learn. So we have not implemented the long-term programs because we're now talking about programs. It's something different when you talk about the quick disaster response, but preparedness is also long-term.
Right.
And what our idea is, also based on study, is that, and discussions with governments and other people, that you should bring all the infrastructure, staff, training, funds together in a plan. And also what you see often, if you send something to an area like a hospital, or if you go back after 2-3 years, it's not used anymore because maybe the generator is broken or something like that. So instead of selling or donating, I think a model where you say, okay, we make a contract for 10 years, and within this contract, there's a monthly fee. So you don't have to pay the full amount in advance. But in this fee, we include maintenance, we include training, we include staff, and you build a structure an organization in Indonesia or Colombia, or we have it also in Syria, where we have our technicians that are trained. And when there's a problem, they go there. We support them from Holland if necessary, or from other countries where the equipment is manufactured. And this is also a model that can be financed, because when you look at the funds, there's the universal healthcare coverage in Indonesia. So there's money from the government. You have the local funds in the villages, and I think it's about how much? 80,000, 60,000 euro per year for the villages from the golden villages. That's yeah. So there are different sources of finance, and instead of starting small or projects separate, try to see if you can combine these sources into a long-term agreement where people are trained, where services are delivered for the long term. And also these programs, I think, can be financed by external sources, by banks, by other institutions, maybe partly grants, maybe partly government funds. So it really challenges us. So if there are some financial students or business students here, they can think on that, how to make a business plan for.
That is true.
You're drifting a bit away from donation or single projects into a bigger business plan. Maybe business plan is not a good word, but you know what I mean, right?
Right. A module perhaps, like yeah.
Yeah, please.
Aku juga mau tambah sedikit bahwa kalau kerjasama ke masa depannya, kami juga percaya sense of belonging. Karena tadi aku juga menyatakan bahwa kalau buat sesuatu juga harus ada dukungan dari masyarakat setempat. Kalau tidak jadi seperti fait accompli kan, ini kita taruh unit, kalian harus bayar. Belum tentu orang mau bayar, belum tentu orang bisa bayar, belum tentu orang pikir wah ini rasa aku punya. Kalau buat program seperti Rolf tadi menyatakan bahwa harus dana-dana dari beberapa sisi, harus masyarakat juga ikut serta. Bahwa seperti bangun Ruben sendiri kan, semua rasa wah ini aku punya, wah ini jadi satu kebanggaan, wah yang desa-desa lain juga mau ikut. Always kan orang bilang never change a winning team. Berarti kalau orang lihat wah ini sukses, ini benar jalan di satu tempat. Kami juga lagi buat beberapa feasibility study di Indonesia untuk melihat di beberapa daerah apa yang bisa dilakukan. Apa orang rasa wah ini metode di Indonesia Timur mungkin beda, mungkin di Indonesia Barat beda lagi. Karena dengan cara-cara gitu, kami benar-benar bisa lihat dari skala makro tadi financial, tapi juga skala mikro. Benar apa kalau kita benar teliti apa yang kebutuhan setempat. Dan dengan cara gitu, program-program seperti Mas tadi menyatakan bahwa wah ini program dari negara, wah 1-2 tahun jalan, pasti tidak gagal karena ada kemauan dari orang-orang, karena orang-orang merasa wah ini kami punya, dan kalau bangga pasti kan mau tetap jalan terus. Nah, itu mungkin demikian masukan sedikit dari aku gitu.
Okay, it makes sense. When like the locals, when the locals have like the sense of belonging, the political cycle doesn't really matter as much, because like as we know, we regime change every 10 years right here in Indonesia. Hopefully, if the democracy is working well. And if the people itself has a sense of belonging, it doesn't matter who rules them. It's their own, and it is a really interesting point for me. There's another question. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, that's also the remark of Bertha Tanayam, if I correct it correctly, that she says that for Healthy Village, the quick wins would be to have the local government and authorities see and implement the changes. That's what we were mentioning. If the local government and the local community see the long-term benefit, they might want to act quickly. And that's a very good point. And we also say that we also have a kind of franchise model where we say that the local community will become the owner of the clinics. That's maybe what you said already. But instead of just giving it, you have also a financial incentive for a local entrepreneur to run it, but not as a perverse incentive to only give services to the richer people, but to make contracts with the community. And then since the community also owns part of the shares, they have to work together. So in this way, you try to balance commercial ownership, how do you call that, entrepreneurship, plus services to the community and ownership of the community. We have some ideas on that could be worked out. We have tested that in Africa and it worked well in Tanzania. So yeah, I really think this is a really good point from Bertha.
Right. Okay, there's another question here from Roni Faisal. But before I ask you the question, perhaps Mr. Roni would like to ask it directly by unmuting their microphone. Please let us know if you want to do it. Bisa jadi. Maybe we never know, right? Okay, perhaps there's no response. Okay, I don't really get the questions. Sorry, Mr. Roni Faisal. But I think what he was trying to ask is how the psychosocial support, as you mentioned, does the care of the hospital itself. Like, okay, you guys need to move. I think some little exercise here and there is it's fine.
That's good for me.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for everyone. Sorry.
Yeah, everyone.
Right. Right. So yeah, how does this? Right. Maybe the question is, how do you convince the people to have the psychosocial support of the facility you are trying to implement there, and what are the concept of the sorry, do you have a plan for like the function of a isolating shelter? So like as the COVID-19 progress, we do know that we do have to isolate some patients. How do you come about it? How do you try to support the family that has their own like their own key inside a room that no one can enter and everything? How do you support them like that? Maybe it's a broader context than the disaster preparedness itself, but I guess you have a lot of experience from your nursing background and everything. How do you support the family psychologically, perhaps?
Yeah, I know that, for instance, Doctors Without Borders, they have psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that a lot in other programs during disasters, that the psychological well-being is really important. People are under a lot of stress and they need to talk to people. They need to be helped professionally. So it's also maybe for students that are watching right now that are in that kind of area, really important also during disasters and after disasters.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my specialty, but we see that, and it's really important. And when you isolate patients, more technically, yeah, it's done by negative pressure. It's hard for people not to be in contact. We've seen with Ebola, there are screens, plastic screens that they can see each other. So you try to do as much as possible to keep the contact.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a challenge. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Also, the first question: how do you convince the people there to support the unit you're trying to put there? Maybe
you can answer that.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what I already. Itu sebenarnya aku tadi udah menyatakan, Mas. Kalau mau orang ikut harus kasih insentif, dan kalau mau kasih insentif yang tepat dan benar, harus cari tahu dulu, harus visibility dulu. Apa yang kendala-kendala, apa yang halangan, apa yang masalah di desa ini, dan juga apa kebutuhan. Masa kita bawa unit dari Belanda untuk dokter gigi, ternyata perlu bidang. Karena itu untuk membuat sesuatu yang pas dan terkonek, kami harus interview masyarakat dulu, harus tahu organisasi mana yang udah established. Kenapa kita harus invent the wheel again? Kenapa kita harus buat sesuatu lakukan ulang, padahal udah ada.
Sudah ada.
Dan karena gitu kami percaya kalau mau masyarakat ikut, mau masyarakat dukung, kami harus mapping dulu apa kebutuhannya, siapa udah aktif di sana, dan cara bagaimana kita bisa merangkul, menyatukan supaya bersama ke depannya. Dan aku pikir itu salah satu solusinya untuk membuat supaya masyarakat ikut dan juga dukung dengan inisiatif-inisiatif seperti begini. Semoga ini memuaskan pertanyaan atau memenuhi pertanyaan dia, Mas.
Betul. I think the right incentive is a really great point. But as you have mentioned, giving the right incentive is really hard. You need to know the community way better, because like if the incentives are not right, it will be just another waste of money or other resources, right?
Yes, that's why I said we need
Right.
to first map first and find out what the needs are in the place and who is already active before you connect with each other.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we as Hospitainer, we provide infrastructure, ideas, technology, but you need the local organizations on the ground or the big national organizations to team up with, because they have the knowledge, they can express what is really needed. We don't have that experience, so we need to work together. And I think as students, I think you can have a role in that, because you will, if you go back to Indonesia and start to work there, you will have influence. You can use your brains, your passion, your ideas to make a change. And that's why I think it's good that we discuss this, because you really have, it's not easy to find a quick win, a quick solution. That's what we found out. Otherwise, maybe it would have worked already. So we have to think creative, out of the box. And that's why you need business people, you know, how to have this business incentive. That's why I need the psychologists, how to help the people and know what their needs is, how people react, respond, etc. So I think for all the areas in the students are in, there's a role. And maybe after this session, if people are interested, we can maybe meet here in Fase in the Netherlands, if you want, and discuss this more in depth. You know, how can your area of interest, your gifts, your specialty, your study be a part of the solution? And maybe you can come up with ideas as students. That's why we wanted to join this event, to hopefully see new ways coming out of it, new ideas. And since you have the future, I think this might be a way of thinking out of the box differently. And we can try things. You know, we can do our pilots. We want to start the pilots quite soon, actually. And maybe test some ideas, you know, and see if it works. And some students can do this as part of their research, as an internship or whatever. I would not want to promise anything because I don't know what's feasible. We have to discuss that. But I'm just giving ideas, thoughts, food for thoughts. You know, how can we bring our brains together, and maybe and the energy of the youth, the potential of the youth, etc., to make to have new ideas that will make life better for the communities.
All right, that's true. Again, I think, does anyone have any more questions? So here, Fazal Rizka said that the authority and community in Indonesia can really apply the design of disaster preparedness in perhaps their city planning, so that it's more integrated and more efficient if disaster happen, and increase public awareness to save more of the environment, so the disaster effects can be reduced. But I think I have a follow-up question of what Fawza Rizka is stating. Um, you know, we as a government we have they have options, right? They need to decide which resources to spend to which sector, and in city plannings, he suggests that you need to implement the design of disaster preparedness in the city planning. But the problem is that we have always been undermining the risk of a disaster. This happened in the tsunami in Palu, where the early warning system is off, and people didn't know because like they undermined the risk of having another tsunami. Um, Another problem in Indonesia here is that we are very lacking of scientific communicator. We're lacking of people that can communicate the science and try to convince the people that the data speaks the truth. The data can actually save you guys from dying. As a matter of fact, last year we have barely a BSL level 3 lab. Now we have it on wheels. So like we're more of a reacting community rather than preparing community. Um, how do you me as a science student, I've always been learning for how to communicate my science to the broader public. So this is a personal question of mine to you. How do you actually convince the people of the data that this risk are imminent? You're living in the ring of fire. It's innate in your nature that you choose to live on the very the cracks of the tectonic plate, right? How do you convince this fact to people?
Oh, I thought you had the idea, Roloff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the communication. I think education is an important factor, but since I'm not an Indonesian person, I think Abed can maybe also answer that. But what you see in Colombia, for instance, is that a big part of primary healthcare is promotion and prevention. And promotion is, of course, focused on health, but also on preparedness of disasters and making people aware of the risks, as you mentioned. But how to do it on a good way? I think schools are really important, teachers. But you always see that the incentive for people to live somewhere on a risky area, we have the same in the Netherlands, that they live close to the rivers. The rivers are flooding, and their houses flood. We see that now here as well. That's financially, there's good ground, so let's go there and make our farm there. And people tend to underestimate the risk, as you say. But in Indonesia, maybe there's no alternative. They have to live somewhere, and they have no choice to go somewhere because there's no money to move to another place. But the only way I can think of is promotion, information, etc. And that's also what you're saying is, how do you as a student, as a scientific student, how do I how do I communicate my ideas, solutions to the people? So I think we need those communication people as well, the communication students, mass psychologists. How do you reach people with the new technologies, internet, television, radio, etc. So it's a really wide area that for communication awareness you can also touch. But I think it's an ingredient. It's not only technology like a container. It's not only staff. It's not only training, but it's also communication is really important. But
aku mau tambah dengan masukan arahan Roloff. Menurut aku juga salah satunya itu selalu kalau mau buat gerakan dalam masyarakat, gerakan untuk kesadaran bahwa tinggal di satu tempat buat alam rusak atau tinggal di satu tempat buat suasana rusak dan lain-lain. Salah satunya itu selalu nature dan nurture. Nature itu kan dari kita punya gen sendiri, udah dikasih dari dulu seperti konsep-konsep gotong royong, kebiasaan dan juga nurture. berarti dididik, dan dididik salah satunya caranya dengan contoh-contoh terbaik. Berarti ada beberapa tokoh masyarakat contoh terbaik seperti Roloff, contoh terbaiknya dia bisa tanda kutipnya mendidik kami. Tapi selain itu juga, selain mendidik orang, juga bisa pakai kearifan lokal dengan cara-cara seperti dulu. Contoh, sekarang kita masakan apa saja plastik untuk masak, kita bungkus plastik. Padahal dalam waktu-waktu tempo dulu bukan pakai kantong plastik, tapi mungkin pakai rotan atau pakai yang benar-benar tanpa sampah, bukan dari plastik juga, tapi yang lain. Dan dengan cara-cara melihat dengan kearifan lokal, kami juga waktu itu lihat dengan sebenarnya sudah sering ditulis juga, tapi juga selain kearifan lokal, melihat juga dari sejarah, sepertinya salah contoh waktu tsunami, semua orang di Aceh meninggal, tapi ada beberapa pulau di depan Aceh, orang-orang tidak meninggal sekali karena di situ ada beberapa tulisan lama bahwa kalau ada tanda-tanda bahwa laut udah sedikit balik harus lari karena ada tsunami balik. Berarti balik lagi ke pertanyaan Mas Fauzal dan Mas Ika Hendra, selain mendidik, selain ada contoh, selain kearifan lokal harus juga teliti apa yang dulu sebenarnya udah terjadi. Dan karena itu juga kalau saya juga tahu bahwa bencana-bencana di Indonesia itu terulang. Itu sebenarnya contoh, saya asli sendiri dari Maluku. Di Maluku sebenarnya tiap 60 sampai 70 tahun ada tsunami. Dan itu selalu tiap 70 tahun, 100 tahun ada dicatat. Tapi karena masyarakatnya meninggal setelah 60 tahun, karena itu udah lewat satu generasi, dilupa. Dan karena itu untuk membuat kita lebih siap siaga, harus yang saya tadi cerita, nature dan nurture. Harus nature-nya dengan gotong royong, bahu-membahu, tapi juga lihat kearifan lokalnya. Supaya kearifan lokalnya kurang
kearifan
sampah.
tersebut tidak hilang melalui generasi yang berbeda gitu. Oke.
Benar. Dan menurut aku itu salah satu yang sangat penting. Of nature and dat ook vaak de local wisdom gebruik van maken. En daar kun je als voorbeeld dienen.
Okay. There's a question from YouTube. How do you adapt we're live on YouTube too. How do you adapt the coronavirus protocol to the disaster mitigation process from your perspective?
Yeah, of course, the corona is disaster mitigation. You have to be prepared for infectious diseases. It's part of your contingency plan, because infectious diseases are also a disaster that can strike. Ebola, corona, and so you have to be prepared. You have to have your infrastructure ready. And how we do it, just an example, we have our modules, we have our inflatable tents, and we can either use them for, let's say, patients that need surgery and to recover, or we can make it negative pressure, the containers or the tents, even also the tents, and use them for isolation rooms, halls for the corona patients, and have sluices for the staff, not sluices, but ante rooms, or so that they can work safely there. So we can quickly adapt the infrastructure to either the coronavirus or whatever. But the really important thing is to have your contingency plan. And we made a kind of outline for a contingency plan, and we have experts from WHO, UN, that have, for instance, designed the emergency medical teams blue book for the UN that train people how to respond in certain disasters. But you also need to have your warehouse ready. So you need an ERP kind of software for your warehouse, because you need to know what kind of maintenance do I have to do, preventive maintenance of the pumps, of whatever is there. You have to do trainings with your staff. So the whole contingency plan is really important, and we as Hospitainer help with that. We offer that to our clients, as to say. So you need, next to your equipment, you need this bigger plan to be prepared, and then you quickly can respond when it's COVID on on the right way. And you can probably have combined disasters. Like right now you have COVID, but COVID will not go away quickly, and you might have another disaster like a flood or an earthquake. So you will have people with broken bones that are infected, maybe, or you have women that need to deliver babies that can be infected. So to protect your staff, you have to also have your surgical room, for instance, change from positive pressure to negative pressure. Yeah, so that's all part of the contingency plan, because if you think of that when a disaster strikes, you're too late.
Right. So what you're trying to say is, in the design phase, right from the start, you're trying to be as flexible as you can, because like, a surgery room usually need a positive pressure, but like a isolation room needs a negative pressure. So
right.
one is to keep things out, and the other is to keep things in, right?
Yeah,
so that is a very interesting point. And I think, as a bio student, I can add some points, because I think the modularity is actually a future, because as we know, during the Ebola crisis back in 2016, 2015, perhaps, they have like they have a mobile station that can uh, sequence the Ebola genome, so they can see if the virus has mutated or not. They have this really small sequencing tool called the Oxford Nanopore, and it really helps them to manage the risk of another Ebola outbreak. And I think, for you guys, for the other who is watching, this concept can actually be applied to elsewhere. You can using the modularity concept, you can tailor fit the need of the people better, because you can technically change things and be more flexible if you have a smaller module that can add up to a bigger thing, to a bigger system, right? That is very interesting. Perhaps anyone has another question here for Mr. Roloff before we end things? There's no more. Maybe you have another question for us, sir, that we can try and answer. This is a great opportunity for you to have insights from students around the world. From students in Indonesia.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in how people think how they can play a role in this in disaster preparedness response, and also in the future in Indonesia of making the plans in politics, in technology. And maybe I think people have to think about it, because maybe you sit down and think about it and send it to you as a moderator, and then we can maybe collect it together and learn from your ideas, because I'm just a stupid Dutch person with some creative ideas, but I think the potential of the Indonesian students is really important, the Indonesians themselves. So we need your advice, and that's maybe something that you can send to the moderator, and then we can collect it or something like that.
Right.
I would be much interested.
Perhaps the logistic team can think something to accommodate Mr. Roloff query here. If I know they're watching this, so I'm just telling them if they have another plan for it. Right. I think that's it, because I don't see any more questions. Maybe I'll give another chance for anyone to type in their questions, perhaps around 30 seconds, so they can spit fire, or maybe raise a hand feature. We haven't had someone talk in this conference, throughout this conference. Anyone wanna say something? We're free to hear. Okay, I'll start the 15-second countdown. Or 30. There's no one. Okay. I think no one is asking another question. So before we end today's session, I would like to ask everyone to turn on their cameras so we can have a documentation picture for this event. Can you please start turning on your front-facing cameras, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Bertha.
Oh, there she is.
It's
Oh,
really nice.
Fauzo. I'm sorry, Fauzo. You're sorry. I said Mr. Fauzo. I'm very sorry.
Mrs.
Miss Fauzo.
And Masafi.
And Maharsida is a guy. Sorry.
Oh, timbul balik ya.
Iya, jika balik tadi. Because we don't have genders in our pronouns here in Indonesia, so it's hard.
There's no problem in the Netherlands. In the future, there's no gender in the passport.
Right. Yeah. Well, that is true. Well, everyone is turning on their cameras.
Yes, cuma kan ada koneksi yang lelet mungkin.
Iya, mungkin.
I'm saying that somehow have poor connection, so you can have different.
Yeah.
All right. Perhaps the logistic team can start taking screenshots. Okay, everyone. 1, 2, 3. Say cheese. All right. 1, 2, 3. There's so many pages, so they're gonna scan through it one by one.
Cheese.
Cheese. Just smile on the camera. Okay.
Nice.
Right.
I really hope to work with some of you in the future.
Yes. If you have an opening for me, no, I'm up for it. Right.
I really invite you to come to our factory and have a session together and brainstorm a bit. And yeah, I'm not sure if something will come out of it, but at least we can try.
Right. I'm all in. I'll be back in the Netherlands next month, hopefully. So yeah, we can communicate.
Welcome.
I'm not sure.
How many people are from Indonesia right now in this session?
I think most of them. Yeah. If you see by their names, I think most of them are Indonesian.
Yeah, I mean in Indonesia.
Oh, in Indonesia, I'm not really sure about that. I am now in Indonesia. I'm actually not in Jakarta right now. I'm in another city in Central Java because my parents. Right.
Which city was?
No, I'm currently in a hotel room in Pekalongan, which is pretty random, right? But I'm originally from Jakarta.
Can you raise your hand if you're in Indonesia, everybody?
Yes, please. Anyone?
Oh, it's only 2, 3.
3.
Finger.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
If you're in also.
Oh, there's another one from Batam, which is far away from Jakarta.
Yeah. No, we haven't been in Batam, only to Bangka Belitung, to Babel, Lombok, Bali also.
No.
Oh, Medan, Semarang. There you go. People would like to just see where they are from.
Oh, yeah, this is better.
Yeah. Lampung.
Aduh, pingin ini
Bali.
Manado sih.
Iya, Pak.
Oh,
Di sana jarang ya.
Tegal, ada Arak Surabaya.
Ada Surabaya iki. Aku iso Jawa.
She ask you on mute.
Siti iso.
Paris van Java. Itu Rolof.
Right.
Bandung, Paris van Java.
Okay.
Depok, Pontianak, Padang. We like the Padang food, by the way. When we eat in Bangka Belitung, the Padang food.
Yeah,
right.
It's great.
There's a restaurant in Den Haag too, right? Lapo San.
Oh, I need to go there then.
Yeah, there's one that's very good. It's one of the best actually. Oh, there's one from Sunda Empire, which is which is a viral case if you don't know, Mr. Roloff.
Yeah, I will explain it.
Yes, you perhaps. It's a very absurd
there's
concept
someone-
that we do have.
Someone saying that he's from an empire, so everyone make jokes saying he's from the Sunda Empire. And
Right,
it's really like I'm like a prince and everything, with clothes,
right,
and
right.
saying that he's from the United Nations, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's why
yeah,
they make
yeah.
jokes that Sunda Empire.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd. It's
Kocak
pretty
banget.
absurd. Things we think about here in Indonesia.
But fiturnya kocak Sunda Empire.
One is from Bekasi, which is I don't even know where Bekasi is. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking, Anissa.
Ya, Sulut is amongst others Manado.
Hmm.
Kok North Borneo kan Malaysia, bukan
Uh-huh.
Kalimantan.
Bukan Kalimantan. Oh yeah, there you go. Perhaps from Sabah or something. From Jember.
But it's nice they put where they come from.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Okay, I have nothing to say. Do you have something?
No, I'm ready.
All right.
Lagi, Mas Hendra?
Okay. Perhaps okay. We can end today's session. I hope all knowledge which is being shared by Mr. Roloff here can be useful for our development in future. So for all of you who attend this session and want to get an attendance e-certificate today, there's a QR code or the link on your screen. Perhaps the logistic team can share the QR code. There you go. And the link. You can fill in the feedback form there and we will give you the e-certificate. It is available for all participants in Zoom meeting or who's streaming on YouTube. So yes, before we end the session, I, Ikra Wiratamahendra, as the representative of all the committee behind the session, would like to thank all of you guys who participated. And also I want to apologize if there are some mistakes or misunderstanding during this session. And thank you, Mr. Roloff and Mr. Ebed from Hospitainer for sharing your time and lots of new knowledge here for us all today. Okay. And once again,
yang kurang berkenan.
iya, pasti dimaafkan kok. So yeah, once again, we want to deliver our gratitude to our sponsors and media partners for helping us to succeed this event, the Indonesian Youthquake 2020. Those sponsors are again Hospitainer, Hydrodiesel, Nufik Neso, Ovetco, Oi Indonesia, the Embassy of Republic of Indonesia in the Netherlands, and the Ministry of Education and Culture. Also for our media partners, which are Kompas TV, Calderon News, Belindo Magazine, Brilio, Business Indonesia, and Binus TV. We still have 2 other webinars that will take place this day, right after the session ended at 3 o'clock, with the topic of mental health and productivity. The mental health and productivity is available on our YouTube channel, Pepe Blana, and the Kompas TV YouTube channel. Besides, on the next day, there will be the highlight of our event, the grand webinar. This grand webinar will be held at 19:00 Western Indonesian time, so 7 p.m. in Western Indonesian time, on our YouTube channel at Pepe Blanda. So for all of you guys who attend this session today, don't forget to follow our Instagram page at Indonesian Youthquake and at Pepe Blanda to keep more updated about our next exciting event from Indonesian Youthquake. All right, there you go. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Mr. Roloff. Thank you, Mr. Abed.
Bye-bye. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye.
Riding all these highs, waiting for the calm down. Walk these streets with me, I'm doing decently. Just glad that I can breathe, yeah. I'm trying to realize it's alright to not be fine on your own. Now I'm shaking, drinking all this coffee. These last few weeks have been exhausting. I'm lost in my imagination. And there's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through? Ooh. Can you come through? Ain't got much to do. Too old for my hometown. Went to bed at noon. Couldn't put my phone down. Scrolling patiently. It's all the same to me. Just faces on a screen. Yeah. I'm trying to realize it's alright to not be fine on your own. Now I'm shaking, drinking all this coffee. These last few weeks have been exhausting. I'm lost in my imagination. And there's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through? Yeah. And there's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through? And there's one thing that I need from you. Can you come through?
Yes, baby. Let's do one, baby. Where you going, dude?
Ooh, I'd be nothing without you. Ooh, there'd be no song without you, without you. When I'm down and out and feel like there is nothing left for me, you save me. Ooh, I'd feel nothing without you. Ooh, there'd be no song without you, without you. When I got into a fight and you stood right up for me, you saved me, you saved me. Some stupid shit, you always reassure me. You save me. Ooh, I'd be nothing without you.